Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Immediate ROI for Online Fitness Retailer, RadialSpark Customer Spotlight 6-Pack Shortcuts. My name is Sarah and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. You have entered this webinar in listen-only mode. That simply means that you are muted so we don't pick up any noise from your end. We do welcome and encourage you to submit your text questions via the questions pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. You can enter your questions at any time and we will save them for the Q&A at the end of the presentation. If you have any technical difficulties, please type them into that same questions pane and I will work with you directly to resolve those as soon as possible. We are recording today's webinar and you will receive a follow-up email that will include the recording. By submitting your questions today, you agree to have them read aloud and recorded. All right, thank you for joining us today. I would now like to introduce your presenter, Michael Rockford, CEO and founder of RadialSpark. Welcome, Michael. You now have the floor.
Thanks, Sarah, and good morning, everyone. So today I'd like to walk you guys through a really amazing case study that we had earlier this year with a very valued customer known as 6-Pack Shortcuts. So what we'll cover today is we'll just do some brief introductions, talk about who 6-Pack Shortcuts is, and what we did with the project that we did for them, and then we'll have a brief Q&A session and to go over any questions or comments that you guys may or may not have. So let's get started. So 6-Pack Shortcuts. 6-Pack Shortcuts is an online realtor with an aggressive phone sales team. And I don't mean aggressive like they're going to pick you up and like this guy in the picture here and throw you across the room, but they have a very aggressive timeline and they have a very aggressive daily quota they need to meet. They're a very high energy group that moves fast and has grown incredibly over the past several years. And so I met up with the current CTO of 6-Pack, Chase Larson, about a year ago. And we got together and he was struggling with how 6-Pack Shortcuts could really maximize their Salesforce investment. They had Sales Cloud, they had Desk, they had Marketing Cloud, and several other systems kind of scattered around, and it was kind of a little bit of we didn't know really where to get started. And so I was brought in the picture, and RadialSpark was brought in the picture to kind of help them understand, we have all these tools. What's the quickest way? Where can we maximize ROI and really prove out this IT infrastructure investment? So first and foremost, the biggest problem that we, not necessarily the biggest problem, but the most painful problem that we were having was within the sales process. So we started off with some basic Salesforce automation. And what we looked at is we had a problem with how leads were being assigned, or rather really weren't being assigned. 6-Pack has about, I think, on the order of magnitude of like 5 to 10 gigabytes of lead data in their systems. They've aggregated since about 2014. And that list grows and grows and grows exponentially year over year as they open up new channels via social media and via all these other inputs through their website, through their YouTube advertising, and it continues to grow in a mass. And so the problem is there really wasn't any lead assignment process per se in the way to distribute the leads equally across, or in any sort of fashion across their sales team organization. So leads would come into this hopper and they would flow in and they would be delegated at random to various individuals within the sales organization, or at least that's what we thought. What actually happened when we started looking at some of the dashboards and investigating some of the code is that a lot of leads were just kind of getting left by the side of the road and never being followed up with. And so one of the big problems is that we had this lead dogpiling problem. So salespeople would come in and pick the most high-value leads based on what the customer was interested by looking on the website or one of their landing pages, like, this is going to be a big deal for me. I'm going to go dogpile on this. And really, what was being rewarded was experience with, the Salesforce system. So the longer they're there, the better you were at navigating through through your list views and picking out and cherry picking those top leads. You were rewarded for doing that. And it really wasn't, it really wasn't rewarding your sales prowess or your ability to prospect or any of this other stuff that we really wanted to incentivize within the organization. And as a result of that, the top performers, the people who knew how to use the system the best, they did well. And for the most part, most of the people who at the lower level, newer individuals would struggle because they didn't know how to get to the good leads. So you had poor lead coverage, which means you're leaving money on the table, and you're not maximizing your sales staff. You get that traditional 80-20 rule. So what did we do? We created a custom load-balanced lead assignment algorithm for Sixpack based on a proprietary formula that Chase Larson and I developed in conjunction on how we were going to equally or more equitably distribute these leads. And the result of that was just a dramatic increase in lead coverage and a performance boost across the entire sales staff. Top performers, even though they weren't allowed to cherry pick the best leads anymore, they increased their daily quotas by almost a third in certain cases, going from about like $2,000 a day all the way up to $3,000 a day. And we'll talk a little bit more about why we were able to uncover and drive those particular behaviors in just a second. So the second thing we looked at, once we got the basic assignment process algorithm in place, they also had several analytics cloud licenses that were sitting on the shelf gathering dust. No one really knew how to leverage this tool. They knew it was powerful, but they didn't know what really to do with that. So we applied this tool, built several dashboards, built the data sets, did all the background work to get them up and running, and it started to inspect their sales data. And what we noticed was, looking at the historical data, it was very interesting behaviors when you were combining the top performers with the behaviors that they were logging in the system, number of calls logged, when they were being logged, et cetera. And what we found, oddly enough, was that not only do we see the top performers, which is what we suspected was happening, dogpiling on the best leads, or what was considered the best leads. But you also noticed that they really weren't working most of the day, which was like interesting because you're like, well, these top performers, you walk out into Sixpack Shortcuts Bullpen, and it is just lively and eventful, and everyone's moving. There's tons of energy, and you're like, so the managers are there, the managers are driving the teams. We were trying to understand, well, wait, why were they just not logging their calls? Were they not, we didn't understand. So we started looking at the data and twisting it around and moving it. And what we found was that they would hit their quotas so early in the day that they didn't have to. So they would be around and that energy would still there to be absorbing the energy of the company, but they really weren't putting in any additional effort because they didn't need to. So we tweaked we used that information from Analytics Cloud. We went back and we tweaked the algorithm a little bit. And also we provided some additional training saying, hey guys, if you guys are able to do this, then, we'll be able to maximize your commissions and be making even more money. So after we did that and adjusted their quotas and everything else appropriately, they increased their daily quotas, like I mentioned earlier, by about a third. And that was all because of us properly implementing Analytics Cloud. So we were able to improve the top performers' efficiency. We were able to leverage what these top performers were doing, like looking at the data and saying, here are the people they're targeting, here's the information they have, here's how they approach that sale, and shared those stories. So the VP of sales at Sixpack was able to do these seminars with his sales team and point to Analytics Cloud dashboards and say, listen, guys, look, this is how you win. This is how you make your money. This is how you do this. If you look at the data, like these are the types of deals you should be pitching to these types of customers. The other thing it did is that it put sales and customer service into perspective. So a lot of a lot of the top performers and a lot of the sales and commissions that you would see day to day, or from week to week, you would see, huge gains and tremendous sales, but that wouldn't correspond to underlying revenue necessarily. It wasn't one-to-one, or it wasn't necessarily, or not one-to-one, but it wasn't necessarily directly linked. And that relationship not being direct was a question for us. So we used Analytics Cloud again to take a look at what was going on, and what we noticed was that a lot of these top not high volume, but rather very large deals that were being sold like $1,000 per single call were ending up as chargebacks. We're ending up in the customer service department, and either through an RMA process or through just to say, hey, I changed my mind, like I'm not really comfortable with this. And again, that was again another learning moment, because you would look at just the data and you're looking at some of these teams and then some of these sales reps, and they're just crushing it. They're $5,000 a day, $10,000 a day. Oh man, this is great. But then it didn't correspond to the actual revenue. And being able to combine that financial data and be able to combine that customer service data with the sales data, we were able to look at that and say, hey, this is what's going wrong. And we were able to adjust the sales team's process and how they upsold these customers and how they sold the customers in general. Like, instead of just going for the biggest deal that they could get, that would end up being a chargeback anyway, and they would lose the commission as a result, they would scale it back and say, hey, let's try to make this a little bit more realistic. Let's pivot. Let's make this, let's not try to boil the ocean. And so that was huge. And again, once we recognized that, we were able to recognize certain customers for what they are when they came in, and we were able to, again, enhance and tweak our assignment process to better route leads to individuals that had the skills to land the big deals, but not oversell them to the point where they would end up in a chargeback scenario. And so what does this all mean for six-pack shortcuts? Well, this project took about 6 weeks and costed in and around, I would say, about $40,000 to get everything there with all the consulting and whatnot. And immediately the following month, once we went live with this new process, Six-Pack managed to hit over $1 million in incremental revenue in a single month, which is what they've never done before. Not only did they exceed that, they exceeded it by an additional 400 to 500,000. So we looked at it, conservatively, there was a 400% ROI on that initial investment. 40 grand got them to $400,000 to $500,000, and also broke a key milestone for that company. Now, where they're at is that with these tools and some of the additional Salesforce automation that we've been able to build for them, they've been able to maximize the use of their existing sales team, downsize a bit, promote the top performers, and they've drastically reduced their costs while maintaining that revenue plateau that we managed to get them up and above. And now they're poised for growth and investment moving forward this year. So it's a really exciting time for Six-Pack, and we really appreciate them as a customer. So what else? So looking forward, now that we did this, it's great, or we're done. We don't need to do anything else. We fixed the sales problem. We're good. We just go away, right? Well, what actually this allowed us to do is it really opened up a lot of other doors into other areas of business that also had pain. So this was the biggest pain that they could see. It hurt the most. But then we started looking at IT infrastructure improvements. There was pain there. There was pain on their application development side for their e-commerce applications, for their marketing, custom marketing applications, for the mobile applications. there was pain within the marketing department trying to consolidate and pre-qualify all these leads. Some sources were junk, and the sales team, the phone sales team, had to keep churning through. It was just burn and churn through a lot of stuff that wasn't really very well vetted before it got there. The A/B testing scenario, trying to really maximize like what ads and what pages really work for our customers, what really resonates with them. That data was being obscured, and we weren't seeing that all the way through the sales process and the fulfillment process. And then customer service. We talked a little bit about how sales helped improve that customer service experience in that RMA process, but there was still more to do. So by solving this one pain, it allowed Sixpack to kind of step back and say, all right, now we've optimized this. What other areas are we able to optimize? And so we're in the process of several exciting projects with Sixpack Shortcuts. One of the key ones is around Marketing Cloud and really working with the pre-sales process, the prospecting process, and enhancing and maximizing that those leads that are coming in. Like I mentioned earlier, there's 5 to 10 gigabytes of leads. How do we get better leads? How do we get not just more leads, but how do we get better leads? So the phone sales team is even better armed to close business, and that all starts with their maximizing the ROI that they've already made within the Marketing Cloud purchase. The other key project that we're working on with them is bringing their entire IT infrastructure, which is scattered across several different infrastructures, from Rackspace to DigitalOcean to some on-prem systems, and consolidating that onto Heroku and integrating that data into Sales Cloud, into Marketing Cloud, and then of course into Analytics Cloud. And once that's done, we're planning on tackling the Service Cloud piece, getting them onto Service Cloud, really enhancing that customer service experience and making it seamless from end to end. So that's looking forward, and just some simple. What started off as we're just doing an elite assignment process and doing some business analysis and a couple dashboards with Analytics Cloud has really turned into so much more, and really shows the possibilities of how automation, how IT infrastructure automation, how Sales Cloud automation, how Marketing Cloud automation can really drive ROI in your business. And it might not be as evident or as sexy as a 400% ROI within a single month, but it can be, and it often is. And it's just finding the right partner to sit down with and help you uncover those diamonds, help you figure out where those pains are, and apply the right treatment at the right time. So that's all I have today. It's a little brief. I know this one was a quick webinar in comparison to some of our other ones, but I'd like to open up the floor to any questions if anyone has them. And I, again, appreciate everyone taking the time to sit down with me this morning and go over this awesome use case.